What's up, everyone? Welcome to Per My Last Email, the show where we give you the hot takes and tactics to navigate work life. You're with your best friends.
Yep.
Kyle.
Kayla.
I mean, it's so glad to have you in the studio, and we are talking today about how hard should you try at work?
Yeah, managers hate us for this topic.
Yeah. Doctors do not recommend this topic.
4 out of 5 doctors.
But we go
recommend.
places that no one else is willing to go.
So true.
All for you.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
How hard should you try at work? I am so excited for this topic because it's a little philosophical.
Yep. If you're our bosses, turn it off now. You don't need to know.
Well, my answer is I go 110%.
I know.
All day, every day.
So that's perfect segue. How good are your boundaries at work?
Well, we were talking about this. I think my boundaries are good at work. I would say I have weak boundaries.
Okay.
Because work and life is quite porous. Like, once I log off, I'm not ever fully logged off.
Okay.
I'm checking Slack on my phone all the time. I'm checking my email. I'm doing work post 6 p.m. But I like it. Like, I genuinely like that. It makes me feel good. I think it's a part of my identity, which we can talk about later. Like, work gives me a lot of satisfaction. It makes me happy. And so I don't want to stop doing it. Mm-hmm. And we had an episode about burnout earlier. Like, working hard is not a sign or a symptom of burnout. There's other things. I think I have those other things good, so I'm not at risk for burnout. So I enjoy working, and I feel blessed to have a job that I do genuinely enjoy. So my boundaries are weak, but like that is what I want in this current era of my life.
Yeah, and I think like you're saying your boundaries are weak, but they're not because they're your boundaries that you've set. Like you're not crossing a boundary that you've set for yourself, right? If I'm understanding that correctly.
Yeah.
Like, you know, if you told yourself, for example, I'm not going to work on a Sunday morning, you're probably going to wait until Sunday afternoon to check your messages.
Right.
So it's not like your boundaries, you have bad boundaries. It's like you're respecting your own boundaries. They're just not, I log off at 5 p.m.
Yeah, and this is the issue I have with the framing. When most people talk about boundaries at work, they say, do you have strong boundaries or do you have weak boundaries?
Yeah.
And I just don't think that's the right framing. I think it should be like, what are the boundaries you've set for yourself? And are you, exactly to your point, are you like following through with your plan?
Right.
And my plan is basically like I'm available 24/7 on a whim's notice to do whatever.
Yeah.
And I kind of like that. And, you know, it doesn't happen a lot, but obviously there's times on the weekend I'm working. It makes me feel good to like prep for the week. Mm-hmm. So I am leaning into the boundaries I've set for myself, and I think they're making me happy and making me productive. So I like them.
Yeah, I like that. And I think according to the APA.
Oh.
So this is where things get a little gnarly.
The American...
Psychology.
Psychological...
It's something about the brain.
It has nothing to do with work. It's like the American, like...
Psychology.
American Pterodactyl Association.
No. I trust the APA.
Yeah.
1 in 4 people believe that their employers do not respect personal boundaries. So that's where I think things get like a little funky is when you're setting boundaries that are not respected.
Yeah.
And that's where I think how hard should you try at work comes into play.
Have you honestly though, like maybe I'm ignorant to this, I've never had a boss that like doesn't respect your boundaries.
Oh, I certainly have.
Really? Like you've said, don't ping me at 7 and then they ping you at 7?
No, not necessarily like that.
Okay.
Don't look so surprised. But it's like clearly there are human boundaries. It's like not like in a bad, not in a like unsafe, illegal way, but like kind of illegal. I mean, I've had a boss who once got mad at me for missing an email that came in at 2 a.m.
Yeah.
Like, got really mad at me.
Okay. All right. Then point taken. That is absurd.
Yeah. Like told me when you're potentially expecting an email at 2 a.m., you should fall asleep in a chair so that the discomfort of sleeping in a chair wakes you up regularly so that you can check your email to make sure you don't miss a 2 a.m. email.
That guy has the dog in him.
He really,
100%.
He really does. I think he's doing great.
He's like, I set my alarm every 15 minutes and I wake up every 15 minutes. I haven't had a full night's sleep in 10 years.
No, literally. So I've certainly had like an employer not respect my personal boundaries. And it's not like, I mean, I was like, this is absurd, but I wasn't like, hey, next time, could you not do that?
Yeah.
You know, so like technically I didn't set that boundary.
Yeah. Which I think is an issue though. A lot of people are like, they've invented a boundary in their head that they've never explicitly communicated to anyone. And then when people reach out to you, like they'll send you an email on the weekend and you have made up this rule, I don't respond to emails on the weekend, I don't look at my email on the weekend, you're like mad that someone did something that you never told them not to do.
Right. And also I think we've talked about this in the past, but we should identify what a boundary is.
Okay.
Because especially if we're going to talk a lot about boundaries, we're going to talk a lot about what it means to, try hard at work and what, how to define that.
Yeah.
In this situation, the boundary is not somebody emailing you on a Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
It's I will not respond to emails sent to me. It's not like people are going to do whatever they're going to do. Your boundary is not like you can't send me an email. It's I'm not going to respond to emails that come to me on the weekends. I will respond to them first thing Monday morning.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're expecting me to respond to them on Sunday, that better be outlined in my job description.
Right.
And so I think that's the boundary portion that I think is important to talk about. When we're talking about how hard you should try at work, clearly boundaries are a part of it.
Yeah.
How to set boundaries. Should you be signing off at 5 and logging on at 9 and not doing anything outside of that? Like, what does that mean to you? And the reason why we actually are talking about this is because I have a friend who very famously,
all over the front page of the New York Times,
has what she calls the 60% rule. And so basically she does not give more than 60% at work.
Yeah.
And, it's actually something that some of my other friends have started to adopt because they're like, this is genius.
It's a social contagion.
Yeah.
GDP is going to go down 40%.
But that's the thing is I don't think it will. So I'd love to talk about what that means, how react to that. Because I know when I first mentioned it to you, you had a strong reaction.
Well, okay, first, it reminds me of the people that were like in high school who are like, I barely tried. And they got like 100 out of 100.
Yeah.
And really they were trying quite hard. So I feel like there's like this like coolness where people are like, I don't even try at work and everyone loves me.
Yeah.
And I'm so good. And like, I only give 60%. So I'd be curious like how your friend actually defines that. But outside of that whole like pretending to be cooler by not trying, which I'm not, I don't know your friend that well. So maybe she's not doing that. My question would be like, it sounds like her team thinks she's doing amazing work.
Yes.
And so to me, what she's done is she's identified the right things to work on. She's put the necessary effort to do good at those things. And she maybe is like not doing lower impact, lower priority work. But like if your team and your boss think you're doing great work and you're comfortable with how much effort you're putting in, that sounds great. So like, I wouldn't frame it as like how much effort you're putting in. I'd frame it as how much impact she's driving for the company.
Yep.
And it seems like she's driving enough impact where people really like her.
Yep.
So it doesn't really matter how hard, quote unquote, she's working.
Yeah. And I think you're right on that. I don't think it's the like, I'm not trying and I'm super cool or whatever. Yeah. But I think it's more like from the beginning of this job, have never let them see how fully capable I am.
But this is where I'm saying like, it's like your friend that's like, you beat them in a game and they're like, I wasn't even trying.
Yes.
If I went all in, you wouldn't even know how good I was. Like, it's like, come on.
No, but it's
you don't
not
want
like
your
that.
You don't want your coworkers to see how amazing you are at your job.
But it's okay. So this is I was thinking about this a lot because first of all, giving only 60% does not mean you work 9 to 1. It does not mean you're working 60% of the day. Giving 60% also does not mean that, when things get a little crazy, you don't work a little extra hard because it's a big project or whatever. To me, giving 60% means that you understand like your capacity and you focus it on the things that matter, and then you step away after you've achieved those things.
Yeah.
And you give yourself the space to have a life after work.
Yeah.
So the 3 things that I think are really important after you've decided to adopt this 60% rule, right? Number 1, this is important. You are extremely competent.
Yes, you do have to be good.
Yes. If you are, you have to be, I won't give the counterfactual of that one.
Yeah.
But like your 60% has to be enough. You have to still be completing all of the requirements of your job, all of the responsibilities that you have been given, right? Especially if you want to continue on at that job.
Yes.
Second, you, as you mentioned, need to be focusing on the highest impact activities. This means not that you're giving 60% of your like distracted mind. It means you're focusing on what matters and you're doing those things first, and then you're eliminating the things that don't matter at all. Mm-hmm. And maybe you're not like spending 3 extra hours creating another project or taking something from a 95% to 100%.
Yes. And there's so many quotes about that where it's like, working hard is just like one factor, but choosing what to work on and working on the right things is actually higher leverage, more impact, and more efficient. And I think we often default to like, I'll just work hard on anything, and that's how I'm going to get ahead. When if you haven't figured out what to work on and what's high impact, you've messed up. And your friend has done a great job of identifying that.
Yeah, it's that like grind set mentality that is like, oh, I have 4 days in one day, actually.
Yeah.
You guys are sleeping for 8 hours? Hell no. I'm sleeping for 2. And it's like, okay, great. Like, you're probably exhausted and you're not working at full brain capacity.
Yeah.
The last thing that I think is really important, and this is like, I'm not trying to be sneaky about this, but the 60% rule, I think only works when you start new at 60%. Like, I think if you're going above and beyond consistently, you're burning yourself out or you're spending a lot of your time at work and then you drop down to 60%, people will perceive that change, even if you are competent and you're focusing on the highest impact things.
Yeah.
So starting at a new job or a new position, give 60%.
The 60% rule, it's got good branding. It's a little provocative. So, kudos to your friend for that.
Yeah.
I think what I am impressed by with this framework is it sounds like your friend has gotten very clear on what she wants out of work. And I think that's like the key thing to figure out. I don't think the question is like, how hard should you work? Eventually you get to that. But first you need to decide like, what are you looking to get out of your career? Mm-hmm. And there's the quote that's like, you can have anything, but you can't have everything.
Yep.
And so you have to figure out like, okay, do I just want to stay in this job? And what do I have to do to stay in this job? Or are you like, I really want to get promoted. What do I have to do to get promoted? Once you're clear about your goals, then you can figure out if it's 60, 80, or 100% effort you have to give to achieve them. If you don't have any goals and you haven't really figured out what you want, you could be working super hard, but ultimately be like, why am I doing this?
Right.
Like, I actually don't want the results I'll get from working super hard. So it sounds like your friend has figured out what she wants. She's found a framework that works for her, and she's set up a great life outside of work.
Yeah, and I think it's also really important that she has found her niche.
Yeah.
So she is extremely valuable at work, and she understands so severely like what the highest impact elements are. And so she's done a few things that like, she's had some new initiatives at work that she's started. Again, that's not like that's what they've asked of her, but she's like, I'm bringing my expertise to this company and I'm going to, use some past experiences in order to make a really, really big impact. They didn't come in saying, oh, I need you to do X, Y, and Z, and I'm doing X and Y and forgetting about Z.
Yeah.
Like, I'm bringing this in. It is an initiative. I'm still working hard.
Yeah.
But this thing, for me, it's like, this is going to take me 10 minutes, but it has such a high impact. And people are like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Like, I can't believe you're doing all this work, because they just don't know.
Well, I think this is actually a really good strategy for everyone listening, is figuring out, like, again, stepping away from work and viewing it as like, how many hours, how much brute force am I putting into it? You should be thinking about, instead of like, what's the highest impact I can have? Yeah. And if you really get clear about what levers do I control that drive impact that my boss wants to see, the company wants to see, if you just focus on those things, you might drive a ton of impact while working a clean 9 to 5 and be really, really efficient and really, really high leverage and do outstandingly well, as opposed to someone who hasn't figured out what levers, they don't understand what's high impact, and so they're working nonstop on the wrong things. And so your friend has just been very smart up front, figuring out what works and focused all of her time on that. And then the rest of her time, she can actually have a life outside of work. Sounds pretty fun. It
does sound pretty fun. Don't know what that's like. No, I'm just kidding.
The other thing about this is identity.
Yeah.
And I think that, like I mentioned, I'll be very honest, like I derive a ton of my own self-worth and identity from my output at work.
Yep.
And feeling like I am valued, feeling like I'm making a difference, it gives me something to do. And like feeling like you're good at your job gives me a ton of internal like worth, confidence, self-motivation that I need. Like if I lost my job, I would be in the wilderness a bit. I'd be like, what do I do next? So that might not necessarily be good, but it definitely works for me now. How have you felt like your identity has been tied up in work, maybe over the course of your career, how that's changed over time?
I've had different stages, I think. And when we were talking about like boundaries at work and how hard I try at work, this is probably the first like season of my life where I'm not full sprint towards burnout.
Yeah.
And so I'm almost like, am I working hard enough? Like,
yeah,
I'm signing off at 5 and I've done all the work for the day. Like, am I missing something? Like, what's going on? But I think in the past I've had a really unhealthy relationship with work, in that not only is my identity tied to the work that I'm doing, but it's tied to the perception of how hard I was working.
Yeah.
And so it's like that specifically, I think, was the least healthy part of how hard I was trying at work.
Yeah.
Because if I was, even now, and I'm slowly breaking it, but like hours worked equals productivity, which is not true at all, as we've just discussed. And for me, I think I was so like, if I'm not the first person in and the last person out, then I'm like not working hard.
Yeah.
But I ended up like messing around and like reading or just like puttering around the office, like without anything to do.
Yep.
And then I'd come home and be exhausted because I didn't have any time for myself,
Yeah.
you know? And so breaking that slowly has been a like years long effort.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I'm finally at the place now where I can be like, you know what? I have done all of the work I need. I know how I'm being evaluated and I have surpassed that evaluation.
Yeah.
And I can step away at 5 o'clock and not feel bad that I'm not working until 7. We'll be right back after this. Okay, back to the show.
It's such a good point, and I love one. We've talked already a ton about this, which I wasn't sure if we were going to, of like decoupling, you know, how good you are at your job with just like number of hours.
Yeah.
And really focusing instead on like impact. And we've all been there. Like I've had so many times, just like you said, where I work all day and then I get home and I'm like, I finished everything, but I feel like I should be doing more.
Yeah.
And that's okay if you end up actually doing more. Like you log on and you put out more great work and you feel like there's incentives and you're getting ahead in your career. Where that sucks is like you feel like you should be doing more, but then you don't actually do more. You just go and do something else but don't enjoy it.
Yeah.
Because you're thinking about work.
Yeah.
That's where you don't want to be, where like you're not accomplishing anything. That's like the danger zone. I don't think it's bad at all to be like, I put in a full day's work and I want to keep working.
Yeah.
And then going to do more work. You've made that choice and hopefully you're getting compensated or there's an incentive for working harder. The issue is when you have decided you're not working, but you want to be, or you feel like you need to be, and it's affecting other areas of your life.
Yeah, absolutely. And not only that, but like maybe you want to continue working. You feel like you need to keep working so that you're a hard worker, but there's nothing left for you to do. And so then you just end up staring like at your screen, like clicking between tabs at like 8 p.m. Like, what am I supposed to be doing right now? And I could be on a run or something. Yeah.
And it is one of those things, like you look at like peak athletes too, like recovery is a big part of it.
Yep.
And I think if you get in that mindset, you don't recover. There's been nights where I've stayed up late, like working on just like stuff that does not need to be worked on.
Yeah.
Then I don't sleep well. Then I wake up the next morning, I'm stressed and I'm like, what am I doing? So that is what you need to avoid.
Yeah.
For sure.
And I think that brings up a few good points. First is the Eisenhower Matrix. And like recently I said that Winston Churchill said some quote and it was Eisenhower. This time it is actually the Eisenhower Matrix. I know this for sure, but it's like delegating. It's like the 4 quadrants of task management. And I think like just to get super tactical for a second, like if you're going to set boundaries with your time or with your, you know, the work that you're doing, understanding how to delegate tasks into these different buckets and how to act accordingly is going to help you so much more to keep those boundaries set. And that's like how urgent is something and how important is something. And sometimes we conflate the two, but they're actually 2 very different things. Something that feels urgent but is not important can be delegated. Does not have to be like something that you do right now. If it's urgent and important, obviously you do it now. You know, you can make time for something that's important but not urgent, and then you throw away things that are not important and not urgent.
And I don't even think this is necessary only for people that want to have good boundaries. Yeah. I think it's just good to do, period, end of story, in your role. Figure out what are the highest impact things you can do. If you don't want to work all day, you're going to do those first and people are still going to be happy with you. If you do want to work all day, you're still going to be focused on the highest impact tasks. The worst thing you can do is work all day on stuff that doesn't matter. You're not helping anyone and you're going to get burned yourself out. So like doing that is super important. I think my issue sometimes with talking about boundaries and like work-life balance and like I think it's general advice that's applied equally to people no matter where they're at in their career. I think the biggest piece of advice I would have for you is if you're early in your career, I think it's very similar to investing, hard work is, where $1 saved when you're young is worth way more than $1 saved when you're old.
Yep.
And when you have the opportunity to work really hard, one, you don't get as tired when you're young. You probably, for most people, have less responsibilities. You don't have a family yet. You don't have kids yet. You have the ability to work really, really hard. And if you are ambitious in your career and you want that, I just think setting too strict of boundaries and not working hard enough when you're young and being ambitious, it's not going to work out. And so I would lean into working really, really hard and having quote unquote weak boundaries when you're young to put yourself in a position that when you get older, you're able to be in a spot where you have high leverage, you have a good salary, you've done a ton of reps and you're really, really smart. I think that's the best advice.
Yeah.
And I would hate I think there's this general sense that boundaries are really, really important no matter what. And work-life balance is really, really important no matter what. You shouldn't be working hard. And I just think don't let someone else make that decision for you. If you yourself have said, I want to stop working at 5, and that's just how I'm going to do the 60% rule, and that's what you've decided, I love that. Good on you. You figured out what you wanted. And if you said, I want to work super hard on high impact things and I want to go crazy hard for when I'm 20 to 30 and see how much success I can have professionally, that's great as well. It's just don't let someone else dictate what you decide in your career.
Yeah, I do like that. And I was just thinking, it's funny because the mindset is shifting throughout the generations. And I feel as millennials, the generation above us, Gen X and the boomers, were I worked super hard and I'm still working super hard. And so you have to work super hard.
Yeah.
And for us, we worked super hard. We got relatively far in our careers and we're able to kind of pump the brakes a little bit. And we're seeing the benefits of the work-life balance. And instead of being Gen Z, I worked super hard, so you have to work super hard. We're almost no, I'm at this place now where I'm really solid in my career and I can have more stricter boundaries. And you should do that too because of how great it is.
Yeah.
And I do believe that, first of all, truly, I think boundaries and having a work-life balance is amazing.
For you.
For me.
Yeah.
But also I understand that I would not be so comfortable imposing those boundaries if I had not worked super, super hard for the first 5 years of my career.
Right, exactly. And I think that gets lost. There's a quote when people talk about raising their kids who have been successful but grew up and they didn't have a lot, they're if I had what my kids had now, I wouldn't have what I had now.
Yeah.
Right? And I think there's you forget how hard you had to work early in your career to be able to have a comfortable work-life balance. And then you give that advice to people that are earlier in their career without actually giving the advice you wanted to hear when you were at that stage, which is I think you should be working way harder when you're early and see how far you can go. And that doesn't mean you have to stop when you're older. But if you want to stop, you're going to be in a better position to do that if you work hard.
I actually saw this reel on Instagram that I swear is relevant from @MayaMentalFitness. Okay, but I've never seen any of her other content, so I can't vouch for her.
So you're I saw a reel. The username was @ThisIsNotKayla Lopez.
No.
And
I'm serious.
Okay.
And she mentioned the 3 seasons of work, and this is why I wanted to credit her because I had never thought of this before.
Okay.
She basically breaks up her life into these 3 seasons. Harvest. No, I'm serious. It's don't laugh. It's real. Okay. Harvest, this is the high intensity, the action, the networking, being super public facing, really productive. Hibernation, that's the recovery. That's the deep work. That's the rest. And then growth, that's planting the seeds for the harvest. Starting a lot of new projects, doing more research, starting to get a little bit more of the networking stuff. And she breaks that down into, it's much shorter, right? She says harvest for her is 1 to 2 weeks. Hibernation is 1 to 5 days. Whoa. And then growth is 2 weeks to 2 months.
Wow.
Which is really, I think, quite fast and intense. But I think that's also a really good way to think about your career in general. There's going to be ebbs and flows. For example, the past 2 months, again, Austin, turn off this, please. The past 2 months have been kind of like hibernation for me. I've been doing exactly what I need to do and kind of no more.
Yeah.
But I'm in the middle of wedding planning and that's taking up a lot of my time. So I'm probably signing off at 5.
Yeah.
If there's any like projects, I'm doing them, but I'm probably not going above and beyond. And literally this week has been like, all right, we're in growth mode now. Like I feel like there's a lot of new projects starting. Wedding planning is wrapping up. Like I see my work ramping up and I've been getting up early. Like I've been working at 7 a.m. because that's when I'm the most energized and like probably still signing off at 5, but my net time is much higher.
Yeah.
So I really like thinking about this. Maybe not, I need 5 days of recovery every 2 weeks of harvest or whatever, but thinking that there's going to be ebbs and flows and allowing yourself that break is, first of all, what allows you to recover from potentially getting burnout or preventing it. But it also like allows you a little bit of flexibility. Like this is a harder period, but it's going to end, which I think is actually a really mature way to look at it.
I like that. I don't know if I agree with her time frames, but thinking about your career in seasons can be very helpful. What I want to point out is when you said I was doing everything I'm supposed to do, you said it in a way that was like, you had to like apologize for doing that. And I think this is true just about America. Like there is this issue where even if you feel like this is what I want to be doing, I want to work 9 to 5. I want to do everything that's required of me. And you do that, you still feel guilty somehow. And this is what I'm getting back to, like, don't let someone else tell you what you should be doing with your career. And so I think owning that, being like, yeah, I do what's on my JD. I get it done within the time that we're supposed to work. And then I go live another like my other life. I plan for my wedding. There's other things going on. That's cool. And I think it's just like owning that and not apologizing for it and knowing the trade-offs. Like maybe there's things that you could have gotten ahead and like you could have been rewarded or like it could have grown your career more, but you can't have everything. And instead you're shifted to, I'm going to do exactly what I need to do. And I'm going to plan a wedding, which takes a freaking long time, and it's gonna be quite fun. I'll be there. So, okay, turn up. It is just weird. I think that's like an American mindset problem. Talk to someone in Berlin, you're like, how hard are you working? They're like, I took all of August off. You're like, what? Excuse me?
Right.
Come again?
And they're like, and I'm working perfectly hard. Like I'm getting everything done. It's totally fine.
Yeah. And I don't know why I called out Berlin specifically.
I know that was like
pretty much
pointed.
Berlin really pissed me off someday.
You're like, France or something. I don't know. Whatever. We're not throwing blows here.
The other thing I have for the employer side of things, which I think plays a big role into this, is oftentimes you'll hear the phrase, think like an owner, act like an owner. And we've talked a ton about this. If you feel like your team or employees at your company aren't working as hard as they should be, but they are like achieving everything they need to, but you're like, why aren't they going above and beyond? Think about the incentives. And I think that's really smart for you as an individual contributor or, you know, an employee think about as well. At some point, working hard might not have any more benefit to your career. And so I would not recommend anyone work hard for the sake of working hard. I think the best position you can get in as an employee is I want to work hard and there's clearly benefits for me going above and beyond. Like if you can hit the work hard button and then like more money comes your way or more opportunities come your way and you're young, I would hit that button all day until you've achieved kind of what you want and maybe you think about taking a break. But like if that feedback loop is strong, like spam it. Act like an 88-year-old in a casino playing slots. Just keep hitting the button. The problem is, at some places, hitting the button has no feedback loop.
Yes.
You're not actually getting rewarded for working harder. There's no incentive. No one cares. You're not getting rewarded. You're not getting more career growth. But you feel because you have this American mindset, like, I got to be grinding. I got to be working hard. You're working at the wrong company. You haven't set up the right feedback loop with your boss or your company, and you shouldn't be doing that. Again, the worst thing to do is work hard on things that don't matter, don't grow your career, don't get you closer to your goals. But what I'm not saying is working hard is bad. Working hard can be amazing if all the incentives are lined up and it's helping you achieve what you want to achieve.
That's exactly one of the tactics I had listed here. I think from the employer side, like figuring out the incentives, if you want to incentivize people to go above and beyond, make sure that that's linked to their outcomes.
Yes.
And on your side, on the employee side, when you should give more, whether it's, you know, more than the 60% rule or whatever, is when it's clearly linked to increased outcome. That could be promotions, that could be pay, as you were saying.
Yeah.
When it's you're lacking, right? You're 60% or the boundaries that you've currently set, you're not able to achieve the outcomes that are expected of you. That's when you probably got to kick it up a notch. And when performance is linked to face time versus outcomes, first of all, you should probably start looking for another job. But then that's when you have to kind of be around. Being present means more than outcomes. That's shitty.
Yeah.
And that means you're probably in a political, like, uncomfortable work environment. But if that's the case, then you should be. That's
a different incentive.
Yeah, that's the incentive that you're being, analyzed on.
Yep. I have maybe a big question to end this for you. Is I'm 31. You're around that age.
30.
You're like 18. What if Kaila was just like the most productive
18-year-old?
Yeah, just like crushing it. You're 30, right?
We just had an episode about alcohol. Yes, I'm.
That's why you didn't say you drank.
No.
If you think back to like your younger self, when you had like a grand vision for like where you wanted your career to go and how hard you wanted to work, like, do you think you've overachieved, underachieved, like achieved exactly where you thought you would be at this stage in your career?
I never really had a thought about that.
Yeah.
I was just kind of like, this is the next step.
Yeah.
And I knew like I knew I was gonna have to work hard, but I never was like, this is where I want to end up. So I can't actually answer that, but I would say like if I would, I'd probably be pretty comfortable with where I am. I wouldn't be like disappointed that I wasn't like the CEO of Apple or whatever, but I also wouldn't be like, oh, she's gone far.
Yeah.
What about you?
You don't look back and you're like, damn, I should have worked harder.
Or
I should have worked more hard.
I think I should have learned not to tie my self-worth to the amount of time that I'm working. I think I should have worked harder on tying my self-worth at least to the outcomes.
That seems to be like a really good through line of this episode is like decoupling this like just productivity, working
the grind
hard,
set, whatever stupid stuff.
And it's just focusing on the higher impact things where you probably will feel better and get more done and have more time, which is a sweet spot. For me, I think I'm happy with where I'm at, and I think I've worked really hard and gotten to a good spot. I always think like I should have done more.
Interesting.
Yeah, which I think is like what is the saying? Like a double-edged sword.
Okay.
The double-edged sword of like being ambitious is like nothing is ever good enough because then you want more.
Yeah.
And if you ever were like settled, then you feel like you gave up or something.
Okay.
So I do have a sense where I'm always like, I should have done more. I should have started this earlier. I should have, worked harder. But I don't know if that can ever go away. I think it's just kind of a mindset thing.
That sounds like a mindset thing, but I don't think you should compare that to like your old self. Like you're such a different person than you were when you were 18.
Yeah.
Just like by the nature of aging.
I mean, barely. I'm maybe less mature.
That's probably true.
Yeah.
But I think that's really interesting.
Yeah. Well, we won't turn this into a therapy session.
I was about to say, we could talk about this for another hour.
Feels like that's really interesting. So how do you think your mom affected that?
I think that's a whole other episode.
Yeah.
I think we can talk about that.
Let me synthesize my tactics quick. So first is figure out your goals. How ambitious do you want to be? What do you want to achieve in your career? Figure that out first before you start setting any boundaries for yourself. The second is think about your identity. If you really build a lot of your self-worth from work, but you also want to have like really strong boundaries and not like give yourself all to work, you're going to have, I think, an identity crisis. And you're going to be able to fill that with friends, family, faith, whatever it might be. But you should have a backup plan if you feel like, okay, I'm over-indexing my identity to work. And then I think if you're young and you're listening to this and you're young, now is the best time to work really, 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 really hard. When you don't have as many commitments, you have more energy, and there's compounding returns. If you start working really hard when you're like 70, it's just like I haven't seen that plan work out very well. If you start working really hard when you're 20, you can set yourself up for a lot of success when you're older. And on the employer side of things, incentives. If you want people to work hard, there has to be that feedback loop where they hit the work hard button and they're rewarded. Otherwise, they're going to figure out like this is broken and they're not going to give 100% because they're not getting rewarded for giving 100%. And that's what I got for you.
Amazing. To wrap up mine quickly, understand how you're being evaluated.
Yes.
Understand the highest impact actions to get to that goal that you're being evaluated on.
Yeah.
And then have boundaries beyond that or eliminate the fluff. Now, I agree that when you're earlier, at your first entry-level job, probably fluff is your whole job. Like
you start your job, you're like, I've eliminated fluff and I've now eliminated my role.
Yeah, because that's the reality, right? This is probably for somebody that's 3 to 5 years into their career. You delegate the fluff to the entry-level person, and then you can work on the highest level stuff. When you're young, probably you're gonna have to work hard on stuff that you feel like doesn't matter, but that's just a stepping stone, and that we can talk about that for another hour. But yeah, I think you can be ambitious and have boundaries. You just have to understand what that means for you and for your career, and you have to be efficient.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's all I have.
I love that. This was a fun, very fun conversation. Great. Thank you for listening, and let's roll the credits now, Kaila. Our producer is Michaela Heck.
Our technical director is Uchenna Wogu.
Sarah Wiegand is our senior analyst.
And our chief content officer is Devin Emery.
This show is a production of Morning Brew.
Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.
See you. You ready to go?
Yes.
Boom. All right. How hard should you try at work?
Let's do it.
Oh.
Okay. And welcome. No.